You have the privilege to experience an adventure through time, a throwback to an age when humans lived in a immensely different than we do today. All throughout history, food has played a vital role in the rise and fall of civilizations around the globe, and continues to impact our world today. We'll go through their first discovery of how to tame a simple flame right up to the modern-day meals on wheels, and how each step in man's journey was affected by their ability to harvest food. When the last ice age drew to a close around 10,000 or 13,000 years ago, the people of that age did not only live, but with the warmer temperatures and more abundant food source they began to thrive. As nomadic foragers, they moved with the seasons in search of the plants that nourished them. Soon the people began to create tools that would help them supplement their vegetarian diet with meat. With their fancy new spears, hooks, and arrows, the nomadic people began to supplement their diet with protein and adopted a new and more voracious lifestyle, going after live animals as well as gathering fruits and vegetables. They had become hunters, but what to do with the raw meat? Fire. The first time man lifted out a stick from the wildfire or created a spark from flint rock was surely one of the greatest watershed moments in history. They began to discover how to tame and how to utilize fire for their benefit. Man now had access to light, which proved useful when daylight ran out. He had access to heat to keep warm and to cook his kill. Cooking opened up another world for them. A great many things which were inedible were now perfectly fine and even tasty when cooked. An incredible new era began around 7,000 to 10,000 years ago, in a place called the Fertile Crescent. The Fertile Crescent was truly a land of milk and honey. The geography allowed for the birth of agriculture, a completely new way of life that would change human history. Humans traded their nomadic lifestyle for a life of cultivating the ground and producing their own food. A few people could grow a surplus of food to feed many, and thus there was time for people to build upon new skills that would greatly speed up human progress. Thus the Neolithic age had begun. Plants and animals were domesticated in this era. People discovered that keeping animals was an advantage. They not only provided meat and eggs, but could provide labor and muscle power. Fields were plowed at an amazing speed with the help of their 100-plus pound friends, and more food could be produced as a result. 4 of the most widely known farm animals came to the Fertile Crescent and spread to farms around the world. These were sheep, pigs, goats, and cattle. In other areas, different animals were domesticated as well, such as camels, donkeys, horses, and water buffalo, to name a few. Humans were modifying plants in their favor at this time as well, even if they didn't know it, as they hand-selected the biggest and tastiest plants to gather seeds from. They were picking out the best genetic traits. For the first time, people were making lasting shelters for themselves instead of the short-term refuges that were needed for a nomadic lifestyle. They also invented weaving and created new and stronger tools using polished stones. During this time, many new things were invented because of the freedom that the food surpluses provided. They had much more free time now. They did not have to worry about gathering, hunting enough food for themselves. Pretty soon, a dramatic shift in climate threw the people of that age into a desperate need for new innovations. About 12,000 years ago, temperatures began to fall. Food production slowed down because the air was getting drier. There are 3 main components of sustainability: the upholding of a community's economy, society, and environment. And their environment was rapidly changing. It became harder and harder to get enough food. Because of this, people began to store food. They kept grain in granaries, a storage place that contained food such as barley and grain that was constructed of mud. The civilization that could not adapt, however, was the Maya Empire. Like the people living in the Fertile Crescent, the Maya had a great geological advantage. Their region was far enough from the equator to be cool enough for storing food, but still warm enough to grow their crops. The soil was nutritious and good for growing, and the people invented reservoirs that irrigated their crops in times of low rainfall. They had a stable system of agriculture, growing mostly corn and beans. With their surpluses of food allowing time for innovations and growth, their society grew into a great civilization. The Mayas' technology advanced society with a written language, a calendar, and an incredible architecture. But when their environment changed in a severe drought around 760 AD, they were thrown into an inevitable downward spiral of collapse. When Spanish explorer Hernando Cortez came upon the once great Mayan civilization, he found the only few survivors of the drought, a mere handful compared to the estimated 500,000 people. Their society was easily overthrown. Unlike the Maya, the inhabitants of Papua New Guinea never became technologically advanced. While other civilizations grew and moved forward in their progress, the Papua New Guineans had been using the same farming and building techniques for around 10,000 years. The geography of the land played a big role in their lack of development. The air in their climate is too humid, and so food cannot be stored for any length of time because it would rot and spoil all too quickly. This meant that the people could only grow and gather enough food for each day. They were on a constant search of nourishment, and thus had no time to grow and develop skills as a community and civilization. In different parts of the world, people continued to grow at ease with using fire. They began to test what it could do and what they could accomplish with it. Different metals were tested in flame and melted down in a process called smelting, which could melt the iron away from the useless ore. Thus, new and much stronger tools were created, and the progress of mankind continued with its upward climb. As time went on, food production underwent many interesting changes. In the 17th century, Columbus sailed across from Europe to the Americas. The Columbian Exchange distributed American crops not in Europe, but the surrounding lands as well. Corn became widely known and loved as an easy-to-grow food source. Around 500 years later, America looks a lot different than it did before Columbus arrived. The Haber-Bosch invention of using leftover nitrogen from the war and turning it into fertilizer had given the world an explosion of food. 2/5 of the people in the world owe their existence to Haber's invention. With the surplus of food, the way people are eating now is vastly different than the way people used to eat in the ages where they were simply hunter-gatherers. There can now be 4 different classes of eating. The hunter-gatherers, as we've seen, rely on themselves and the environment for their food. Then there's the organic eating, the free-range and pesticide-free farm food. But the biggest eating category we see today is the industrial eating, the McDiet, or the Meals on Wheels. People rely solely on their supermarkets for food. We see that throughout time, food has played a huge role in the rise and fall of civilizations. The people living in the Fertile Crescent and the Maya were able to grow a civilization and to develop new skills to further advance their society because they did not need to worry about food. In contrast, the Papua New Guineans did not develop over the years because their main focus was simply to survive. From the beginning of time, all development has been intertwined with the society's ability to obtain food.